Honestly, if Persona 5 was a whole new game, it would be my game of the year with a bullet. And regardless, I'm calling it my game of the entire generation.
Top 5 games of 2020. Not top 6, not top 20, top 5. Oh my head. Right. Okay. Just gonna do the same thing as Alex's. Here it is. Boom. Next honorable mention is Persona 5 Extra Bits. Boom. There. On the screen. It's done. We're not GameSpot. We're not IGN. We're not Outside Xbox. We're not Watch Mojo. We're the Bash Bros. Top 5. It's all I wanted. It's all I wanted. Just play the fucking episode.
And Spider-Man was my game of the year 2 years ago. A spin-off game featuring Miles Morales wasn't exactly high on my list of expectations for what I wanted next from the series. But in a post Into the Spider-Verse world, I guess I should have had more faith in the mad lads over at Insomniac to do the impossible again and absolutely nail the tone, feel, and spirit of a game based on Miles' first adventures as Harlem Spider-Man. Miles Morales takes its 30-hour older brother, strips back a lot of the padding and side stuff, and just gets down to brass tacks. Being fucking Spider-Man. Yet again, it's a joy to swing around the city, it's incredibly witty and funny, and the gameplay in general is amazing. But honestly, none of this should come as any surprise to fans of the original game. Most importantly though, Miles Morales tells an incredible personal and touching story, and gives Miles enough unique properties and gameplay hooks to make me really believe that Insomniac would nail a proper dual protagonist story in the fully fledged sequel. Clocking in at a swell 12 to 15 hours, Spider-Man Miles Morales is a relentless sprint through Harlem and doesn't stop to catch a breath until the credits roll. It's an insanely tight, well-packaged adventure that should really be the new standard for comic book games. I've always been a sucker for Don't Nod's games, and I still think Life is Strange is one of my favourite games. So when they teased another emotional young adult drama tinged with some supernatural elements, I was on board, and Don't Nod really delivered with Tell Me Why. While lacking some of the cause and effects elements from the Life is Strange series, Tyler and Allison's journey into their strange circumstances around their mother's death, and their involvement in it as children, is a heartfelt story that really nails the emotional highs and the somber lows perfectly. And the story is gripping throughout. The involvement of GLAAD and the great representation and portrayal of Tyler as a trans character should also be seen as a landmark in video games and a new standard going forward. While the gameplay lacks some of the interactivity of Life is Strange, Tell Me Why still manages to use the twins' supernatural powers really smartly, and with enough restraint to not unravel the whole plot in supernatural bullshit. And the slow ramping of the intensity and the effect that their powers has is done incredibly well. Overall, while Tell Me Why doesn't reach the lofty highs of the original Life is Strange, it does remind me why I love Don't Nod as a developer, and how well their stories can be told within video games when you really strip them back to just the most core elements. I was skeptical that a remake of one of the most critically acclaimed games of all time could ever live up to any of the hype. But the Final Fantasy VII Remake blew all of my expectations out of the water, and even managed to be a surprising package, with incredibly smart storytelling refining the original's plot, and adding a new twist in the tale that may have yet to actually have been fully paid off yet. The change from traditional turn-based JRPG combat to real-time action gameplay is one that mirrors the Final Fantasy series in general these days, but it is the slow refinement and advancement of these elements that sees the Final Fantasy VII Remake surpass the likes of Final Fantasy XV and Kingdom Hearts, and makes it feel like Square has finally cracked what makes action gameplay fun, and have now started putting their own spin on it, with the combat feeling really engaging and really rewarding when you finally master a proper use of your ATB and switching characters, and properly stacking up the staggering bonuses to deal massive damage. Smartly altering the story within the remake is where Final Fantasy VII truly shines though, with subtle winks and nods throughout the game that make you think this isn't going to be the story you remember, until a final new climactic moment against Sephiroth truly changes your perception of the entire game. And without spoiling too much, really makes me think that the whole story is heading in a wildly different direction past Midgar. All in all, I don't envy the massive task put on Square's shoulders when they were asked to remake Final Fantasy VII, but they truly knocked it out of the park in every aspect, and make it a story worth retelling. And when the eventual part 2 comes out, I'll be incredibly excited to see how else they change it up. In a year where we were all locked inside and numerous other multiplayer games came to the forefront in their own ways, it was Fall Guys that rose above the likes of Among Us, World of Warcraft, and weekly Zoom quizzes as the main way I wanted to socialise with my friends, as little bean boys trying to win a ridiculous game show. I grew up loving Takeshi's Castle and Total Wipeout style game shows, and to see someone finally emulate that feeling in a video game was a revelation. Fall Guys' premise is simple: be the last person standing after a series of different Battle Royale-esque games, and it fucking worked outstandingly. Some rounds see you racing to the end of a ridiculous obstacle course, others see you working with your fellow beings to accomplish a goal, but every round has me on the edge of my seat the entire time, as I fight tooth and nail to win that crown at the end. There isn't actually much more I can say about Fall Guys that I haven't summed up pretty well already. It's been amazingly well supported so far, and looks set for an absolutely bumper 2021, and I love this game. My love for 2016 Doom has been well documented on this channel, and it was still the best first-person shooter I had ever played, until Doom Eternal happened, and completely reshaped how I even think about first-person shooters. From the outside looking in, Doom Eternal looks like more of the same. Go from room to room, murdering every moving demon in your way, finding keycards and the like, more ripping, more tearing. But when Doom Eternal really clicked for me is when I had the sudden realization that it wasn't completely just an action game. It was a puzzle game that asked the question, what's the best way to murder everything before it murders you? The way Doom Eternal smartly teaches the way in and out of dozens of scenarios is so smart and so seamless that it never really feels like you're actually being taught things, until you have the sudden moment of it all just happening at once and realizing, oh, this is why the game gets so heavy with tutorials sometimes. The game is a great lesson in design philosophy because nothing was added just cause. Everything was added with the meticulous attention given to when it should be used and how it can fit into the fleeting moment-to-moment combat sequences. And it shows. Every tool at the Doom guy's disposal has a very specific purpose and use case, and every gun works best against different sorts of enemies, almost turning the whole thing into the bloodiest game of rock paper scissors known to man. And that's just the gameplay side of things. The game looks as amazing as ever, and actually even makes me care about the Doom lore. I actually went and read Wikipedia pages about Doom lore, and the music again is top notch and almost a step up from the previous game. While 2016's Doom core thought process was, how do we bring Doom into the 21st century? Doom Eternal's thought process almost feels more in line with, how do we bring FPS design into the 21st century? In a genre that has long felt stagnant with military shooters and loot-filled live games, Doom Eternal rips and tears its way into the forefront by being a real breath of fresh air, and honestly, the new best shooter I've ever played.